All right, today in class we talked about two-way frequency tables, so we're going to learn how to construct one and then we'll learn how to interpret relative frequencies. A relative frequency is a ratio to the value of a subtotal to the value of a total. So we talked a lot about what a ratio is. We can say 5 is to 8. That's one way to write a ratio. We can also write it 5 is to 8, and then we write it as a fraction, 5 is to 8, and this is the one that we're going to be concerned about using today in our assignment. A two-way table shows data from one sample group as it relates to two different categories. A two-way table can show relative frequencies for rows or for columns. I'll usually ask you to do one or the other, not both. And by analyzing the frequencies in a two-way table, you can determine possible associations between two variables. We talked about if the association is less than 50%, and there really isn't a strong association. You want that to be greater than 50% to talk about any kind of association. So here it says, Philip surveyed students at his school. He found that 78 students own a cell phone. So total 78 students owned a cell phone, and 57 of those also own an iPod. So we would put the 57 here. With the frequency table, we add these two cells or boxes, and they will give you that 78 over there. So to find out what this missing, how many students had a cell phone but didn't have an iPod, then you would take 78 minus 57, which is 21. Okay, we're going to go back to our paragraph and get some more information. It says that there are 13 students who do not own a cell phone, but own an iPod. So own an iPod, don't own a cell phone. That 13 would go here. The same idea with a row with a column. We can add these two and it'll give us the total down below. So when we add those, we get 70. Then moving on to our statement, it says 9 students do not own either device. So no iPod or no cell phone is 9. So again, I'm going to add down to get 30. I'm also going to add over to get 22. And then you can either add over or down. Either way, you should get the same number. And here we get 100. So that's how we have just constructed the two-way table summarizing the data. Example 2 says, use the previous table to interpret the relative frequency of students by row. So we're going to go by row here. Okay, so when we go by row, we're going to remember that a relative frequency says that it takes a ratio of a subtotal to the total. So we're going to take 57 is to 78 and divide that, and we get 0.73. Then we do the same thing for the no iPod and the total. And we take 21 divided by 78, and we get 0.27. Now you should notice something interesting about these two values. If we add them, you should end up getting 1. If we move them to a percentage, we would have 73 plus 27% would give us 100%. So that's one way to make sure that you have the right values there. We're also going to do the students that did not have a cell phone. So we take this total here, 13, or subtotal, sorry, over the total here. And when we take that 13 divided by 22, we get 0.59. So we could really quickly say that this is going to be 4.1. But if you're not sure, you would take 9 divided by 22. Okay, once we have those, it wants you to interpret it. Whenever it says to interpret, we're going to write a statement. So I'm going to identify the greatest relative frequency here. It's that 0.73. Because we went by rows, we're going to start... Oops, sorry about that. Because we went by rows, we're going to start with the cell phone here. So I would say of the students that have cell phones, let's say that had, let me change that. %, also had an iPod. Okay, example 3, we're going to use the same table, so which means we're going to get some similar answers, but this time we're going to interpret by column. So because we're going to go by column, we're going to take our relative frequency, which says that it takes a subtotal over a total. So notice that we're going to do columns now instead of rows. So I take this 57 over 70, which is 0.81. Then I would also take that 13 over the 70, or I could say, hey, these two have to add to be 1, so this has to be 0.19. Then on our other no iPod column, we take 21 over the total 30, which is 0.70. And then we also take the 9 over 30, or we can say those two have to add to be 100 or 1, so we get 30 there. Now again, we want to analyze our greatest relative frequency. So we can see here that this 81 is the greatest. So we're going to talk about, of the students, because we're doing columns, we're going to start with the iPod idea. So of the students that had an iPod, 81% of them had a cell phone. Okay, so that should help you with your assignment 6-6 two-way frequency tables. Good luck.